أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Welcome to our fourth session on the Tafsir of Surah Naml. We had reached yesterday on the discussion where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this Holy Surah speaks about Dawood and Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam. And he specifies and mentions that the fadilat and the importance of Dawood and Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam is due to their ilm, is due to their knowledge. And they also praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the fact that Allah has made them more knowledgeable and superior when it comes to knowledge compared to the rest of his servants. And so they do not introduce themselves or do not consider themselves to be superior due to their power of their government, which they possess, but rather due to their knowledge, and they also give thanks and do shukr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the ni'mat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed them. The second point, of course, which is equally as important, is that they have done shukr and thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala over being hakim and governing over the believing people. And this is also a key significant point, that it is when you rule over the believers that it is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that ruling over a corrupted group of people, a group of people who are not believers, is not some kind of honor, or in essence, it is not just the power itself which is something which is honorable or something which is of fadilat, of excellence. No, it is ruling over believing people, which is the excellence and the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So one of the reasons that we mentioned, that they said that you have made us or favored us over many of the believing servants and not all of them, even though, of course, prophets were superior to all of the people in their respective times. One of the reasoning that has been mentioned by some of the Mufassirin of Holy Quran is regarding the principle of discipline of humility, where a person must not think of themselves as superior to other people, except by that rank which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made superior for us. Or that they did not consider a particular part of their time, but they considered all of the time, and of course, in the history of prophets, there have been prophets who are greater than Dawood and Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam. Now, regarding the inheritance of Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam, there's a very interesting story that has been narrated. This story has been mentioned in Minhaj al-Sadiqeen, that Dawood alayhi salam had 19 sons, and each one of them wanted to inherit the kingdom of his father. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Dawood alayhi salam 9 questions and said to him that you can appoint that son of yours as your successor, whosoever answers all of these 9 questions correctly. The first one is, what is the nearest thing? The second one, what is the furthest thing? The third one, what phenomenon manifests love? The fourth, which phenomenon manifests dread? The fifth, which things remain the same? 6, which things are always different? 7, what are things which are always opposed to one another? 8, what ends in goodness? And 9, what ends in evil? Now, these are the questions and the answers. Dawood alayhi salam, 19 sons. And Sulaiman is the youngest of them all. He's the 19th son of Dawood. One day, Dawood alayhi salam intended to announce the matter of succession. He wanted to announce who his successor is going to be. As he was leaving his home and he was going towards the palace, towards the Dar al-Hukuma, towards his place where he used to give judgments, one of his wives says to him that when it comes to the matter of inheritance, then consider my son favorably. In other words, the son of Dawood alayhi salam was that wife. And Dawood alayhi salam had intended to announce the succession on that day, but he hadn't told anyone. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends down revelation to Dawood and says, Dawood, today we're postponing the announcement of succession. So he says, why? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replies, because that's one of your wives who asked for her son to be considered favorably, that would influence your decision making. And therefore we don't want that. So we're going to postpone it for another day where your decision does not get influenced by her saying. So then the day is postponed, is changed, and these 9 questions are presented to all of the sons. Nobody answers them correctly other than Sulaiman alayhi salam. What does he answer? Sulaiman alayhi salam answers, the nearest thing is akhirat, hereafter. The furthest thing is that time which has gone. What is the phenomenon that manifests love, body with soul? And the phenomenon that manifests dread is the body without a soul. Which are the things that remain the same? Sky and the earth, they remain the same. And which are the things which are always going to be different? They are day and night. Which things are opposed to one another? Life and death. Life and death are opposed to one another. What ends in goodness? Patience at the time of anger ends in goodness. Okay. And what ends in evil? Haste at the time of anger. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends down the revelation. Sulaiman alayhi salam has answered these questions correctly. Therefore, he should be the one who is appointed as your successor. And therefore, the next few ayat now tell us about the story of Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, which is the key story mentioned in this surah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وورث سليمان داود وقال يا أيها الناس علمنا منطق الطير وأوتينا من كل شيء إن هذا لهو الفضل المبين وحشر لسليمان جنوده من الجن والإنس والطير فهم يوزعون حتى إذا آتوا على واد النمل قالت نملة يا أيها النمل ادخلوا مساكنكم لا يحطمنكم سليمان وجنوده وهم لا يشعرون فتبسم ضاحكا من قولها وقال رب أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي وأن أعمل صالحا ترضاه وادخلني برحمتك في عبادك الصالحين. وتفقد الطير فقال ما لي لا أرى الهدهد أم كان من الغائبين. So now we're starting inshallah today's discussion briefly, and then inshallah we'll go on, continue uh, tomorrow and day after inshallah ta'ala to complete this section on Hazrat Sulaiman. So Sulaiman was the Warith, the heir of Dawood. And he said, O men, we have been taught the language of birds, and we have been given all things. Most surely this is manifest. Mullah Mohsin Faid Kashani again says that this inheritance is of prophethood and also of kingdom. So this is key because every prophet inherits from the prophet prior to them. Specifically, having mentioned Sulaiman and Dawood is to emphasize that this inheritance is not just the inheritance of prophethood, not just the inheritance of nubuwwat and ilm, but it's also the inheritance of worldly power as well. Whatever power Dawood alayhi salam had, Sulaiman alayhi salam also has that power. In Usul al-Kafi, we read a narration that some people came to Imam Muhammad al-Taqi alayhi salatu wasalam, our ninth holy Imam, who took on the responsibility of Imamate after his father, Imam Ali ibn Musa Rida alayhi salatu wasalam, at the age of 8 or 9. When his father, Imam Ali ibn Musa Rida alayhi salatu wasalam, was made shaheed by Ma'mun al-Rashid, he was 8 years of age. So some people objected and they said, how is it possible that a child can be an Imam? So Imam alayhi salam replied to them that Dawood was ordered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make Sulaiman his successor, even though he was a child. And people were not happy with this. So revelation came down that everybody bring a branch from a tree, and we will lock it in a place in the palace. Whichever tree has leaves on it in the morning will be the successor of Dawood. In the morning when they came and they examined all of the sticks they found and branches, they found that the one which had leaves on it was the one that Sulaiman ibn Dawood alayhi salam had placed. We read in Tafsir al-Qummi by Hazrat Janabe Ali ibn Ibrahim al-Qummi, who narrates from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam that Sulaiman alayhi salam knew all the languages and he could understand not just the languages of the human beings, but also the languages of the birds and the animals. So Imam alayhi salam says, in war, he used to speak Persian, and in the court, he would speak Roman, and in the house, he would speak Assyrian. When he was hosting the foreign delegations or when he would decide a case, he would speak Hebrew. And when he was worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he would speak Arabic. So all of these languages, Sulaiman alayhi salam knew, and he used to use those languages as well. In Basair al-Darajat, we read that Imam Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam told Abdullah ibn Abbas that we know the languages of the birds just as Sulaiman alayhi salam knew the languages. In Tafsir Majma'ul Bayan by Allama Tabrasi, we read from Imam Sadiq and also from his father, Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, that we know all of the things. We have all the ilm, the way that Sulaiman alayhi salam had the knowledge. Sulaiman ruled over the people for 700 years, and he had control of all of the creations, and new things were invented in his time that nobody had seen before. And his host of the jinn and the men and the birds were gathered to him, and they were formed in groups. So Sulaiman had rule over jinn, over the people, and also over the animals. So one day they came to the valley of Naml, of the ants. And the queen ant said, "O my ants, my fellow ants, enter into your houses, lest Sulaiman and his army would crush you while they don't know." We read again in Ali ibn Ibrahim al-Qummi from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, that the valley of Naml has gold and silver in it, and the ants are protecting these valuable metals. In Uyun al-Akhbar al-Rida by Shaykh Saduq Ridwanullah Ta'ala alayhi, there is a debate between Imam al-Rida alayhi salatu wasalam and scholars from various different religions and schools of thought. One of the questions that's asked in that debate is that, why is it that the ant said what she said? Why did the queen ant say this? So Imam Rida alayhi salam replies that Sulaiman alayhi salam asked the queen ant herself, "Why is it that you scared your fellow ants from me?" So she replied that, "I was afraid that they might get impressed by your majesty and your army, which is not ma'soom, that they might crush us because we're so insignificant and small." So he smiled at this speaking of hers, wondering at her word, and said, "O my Lord, grant me that which I should be grateful for your favor that you have bestowed on me and my parents, and that I should do good that you be pleased with, and make me enter by your mercy into your servants." In Basair al-Darajat, we read again from Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, that Sulaiman alayhi salam had Ism Azam, the great name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which answered all the questions and accepted all the du'as. But if Sulaiman alayhi salam was alive today, he would be in need of our intercession, our Ahlul Bayt alayhimu salatu wassalam's intercession. And then now this story of the ants is paused here, and then we're going on to another part of the story, which is equally as important. Still Sulaiman alayhi salam, but we're going on to a different part of the story. So this is the story of the ant. And regarding this, I want to share with you final point for today. Inshallah, from ayat number 20, we'll begin tomorrow. That why is it that out of all of the animals and out of all of the insects, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave such importance to the ant and named a surah after her? Regarding this, I want to share with you a word of wisdom from Marhum Hujjatul Islam, Allama Sayyid Zishan Haidar Jawadi, Rahmatullah alayhi, who says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us this message that the queen ant could have saved herself and left her community, but she cared for her community. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given this message to us, that if a person cares for his community or her community and does something not just for themselves, but for their community, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would make that creation of his, even if it's insignificant, like an ant, memorable that even a surah is named after her. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll continue from ayat number 20. Tomorrow, join us at the same time. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.